Well, I'd like to just say one initial statement that really we both Jim and I thought this was a really nice group of images, very high quality, and thank us for inviting us. But with that said, as probably most people say when they critique these things, Jim and I critique each other's emails, images all the time, and virtually every single time we say at the end, "What the heck do I know?" So again, what the heck do I know as we go through this? On this particular image, I thought it was a very nice, another nice image, nature image, positioned well. It's somewhat of an unusual bird. I love the colors of it. My really only suggestions for improving it is assuming it's a raw capture, which, as an aside, I'd highly recommend to pretty much always capture as raw, is to try to bring out some of the shadows a little bit more for the black. I mean, that's a really tough exposure between the white feathers and the black feathers. But I brought in the JPEG into Photoshop myself, and pretty sure there's some detail in there. Maybe put a little bit of extra saturation in the red too, just to make it pop a little bit. But again, very nice image. Next. The only other small thing, as long as you're not a really small nit, is over in that left-hand side, there was like a little bit of a dark distracting item. I just used the spot healing brush on it, as long as you weren't going to include it as a nature image. Really another very nice nature image. You captured the moment, right? You have all these elephants looking directly at you. It's not hard to do, having, I assume it's probably someplace in Africa, who knows. Again, as long as this was a raw capture, I'd suggest bringing out the shadows in the ears some. That was some really tough light that you shot under. But again, I brought it into Photoshop. I'm pretty sure there's a little bit more detail in some of those shadows, and probably even make it a little bit even more of a pano shot. The guy doing much for you, or is the real bottom of the foreground. And another just very small, again, it's a really nice image. Use content aware and add an extra inch or so on the left-hand side. But again, very nice nature image. You're hitting all my images. We sort of just randomly assigned each other images so we can go back and forth, not a problem. Another nice Caracara image, sort of almost like a painting. It comes across as nice feather detail. My monitor looks very sharp. Pretty much the only, and I like the texture background. It's not really one of my favorite things to do, but it really seems to work pretty well here. And if you can, I'd probably lighten up a little bit on the bottom right. It just was a little bit too much. Again, it's probably personal taste. And maybe one other suggestion is turn it into a portrait and just see what it looks like. That's yours, Jim.
Yes. Number 27. It's going to take me a second here.
So I'll add, is the maker here? I'm going to Newfoundland in September, COVID withstanding. I'd like to know where that image was taken, if the maker happened to be there.
Guess not.
Evidently not. So go ahead.
That was David James.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Hello. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, David James. I'll be glad to talk to you later about that.
Okay, sounds great.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jim.
So one of the things I wanted to say about a lot of the images here is that, you know, when you're trying to make an image, the first step in trying to make the image is seeing the image. And before you even lift the camera to your eye, you have to have the experience, and even beginning photographers have some of that experience of looking at a scene and saying, "Oh, I want to make a photograph of that." And I think a lot of the time when you see the image at first and then you take the photograph, a step you should take next is to say, okay, look at that photograph and try to compare it to the image that you saw in your mind. And sometimes that worked out perfectly. Other times it might have been, well, it didn't quite reach what I wanted to. And if it didn't reach what you wanted it to reach, what can I do to make it more like the image I saw when I first imagined this photograph? In this case, I can really picture the photographer standing there in this wonderful fog, looking out and seeing vague shapes through the fog. I love the idea that the foliage here in the foreground is a nice anchor and beginning of the image. It's all very sharp. But I think there's more detail available here, especially as Frank was saying, if it was shot in RAW. Because when I put it into Lightroom and opened it up a little bit, the sky is really blown out. I think you might be able to show a little bit more detail in that fog. But even as it is right now, it's just a really ethereal, pleasant image, and just a good job.
Okay, moving on.
There was a couple, three, the same maker made some really nice black and white portraits. This is really sharp. I love the tonality of it. The way the light on the face really comes across. I really don't have too much to suggest for improvement. I just like the image a lot. I like the black and white conversion. If I was to give any suggestion, is to again use content aware and try to add maybe just a little bit more breathing room on the right hand side.
Yeah, when I looked at this, I really liked the idea that it was off center a bit. Usually when you see a portrait like this, and
Bless you.
Thanks.
And this is a nice, to me, it's a little bit nice, refreshing take on a portrait that it's off center.
So there you got two different opinions.
Well, it's about the same.
Yeah, I like the off center. I just would add just a little bit more breathing room, still leaving it off center on the right hand side. But what do I know?
Yep.
There's a lot of nice images in here, but in the end, this was my favorite. I really like this image a lot. She just has such a wonderful expression. Sharp, tonality great. Again, just a little off center. Really like this image a lot. I don't have a thing to suggest for improvement.
I wanted to point out something in here. Oh, I'm sorry, Frank.
No, go ahead.
That a lot of people, if there are some more beginner photographers here, you can learn a lot by looking at this image, and especially for the fact that the eye level of this portrait is right at one of the lines of thirds. If you know what the rule of thirds is, it's at the top line of thirds. And a lot of times people will center the entire face in the picture. The head is cropped off, it's over to the side a little bit, but it really draws your attention, your focal point, into one of those rules of third, and that's a perfect position, in my opinion, for the image. Okay, this was mine. So I'm assuming that that when I look at a photo, I'm trying to look at it in terms of a competition image, but not all photos are competition images. This is a great travel photo for reminiscing about a person's trip, in this case, to Italy. It's a great little boutique store that's selling grappa and all kinds of other wines. If you look at the image closely, it's a little bit blurry in places. And if people are a little bit familiar with Topaz, they make a Topaz Sharpen artificial intelligence. And I ran this image through Topaz Sharpen, and it really sharpened the print that is a little bit fuzzy right now. But one thing I wanted to point out is it's a really nice general idea of what that person experienced in the trip. But one thing you should be aware of is that usually when people are part of an image, the people just automatically become the main subject. In this case, the people are way off to the right. Clearly, it wasn't intended to be the main subject, but I think that a lot of viewers would look at this and want to see more about those people that are there. So it's just something to keep in mind about, especially if it's going to be a competition image, that's always, not always, but usually the case with images that include people.
This is mine to
Yep.
critique.
Number 18.
Yep, wonderful colors. Love the treatment of putting on parchment. Composition's great. There's a relatively well-known photographer, a guy, Harold Davis, that teaches a lot of this. I almost wonder if this person went to one of his classes, because this is just very, very, comes across really well. Would make a great print at somebody. I'm not, from personal taste, sometimes I'm not great on the borders. That I belong to 3 different camera clubs, and Sarasota seems to put more borders on a lot of their images, more than I've seen in some others. But this really works well. Again, love the colors, sharp, great image. Another very nice nature story. Love the feather detail, nice colors. Everything is, my nits here would be, it's at least on my monitor, some of the feather detail on the top of the bird just seems a little soft. Again, I would highly recommend the software plugin that Jim talked about, Topaz AI Sharpen. I'd say I haven't done much shooting in the last year because of COVID, but one of the things I've done is I've gone through a lot of old images that I thought were useless, and Topaz has taken numerous of them and made them into pretty, what I would think like as being a lot more likable images. So I'd suggest that on here. But again, I love the flow of the picture. And the other small suggestion would be is try to crop off probably about half of the top. I think you would just focus on the bird a little bit more, improve the image a little bit.
Yeah, this one was mine. So I really like the pastel feeling of this high key image, and I think the combination of the pink and the yellow, a little bit of green thrown in there, works really well. In this case, the petals are sort of soft focus, and the stamens and pistil are um, are sharper, but they could be a little bit sharper too. And again, it's like beating a dead horse here, but we don't want to forget the fact that the center of attention of an image like this, in my opinion, should be really nice and sharp. So the thing to do would be maybe use that topaz sharpen or other sharpen techniques to just sharpen those that center piece a little bit. The other thing I think that might add a little bit more impact on this is that that center yellow stamens and pistil are dead center in the image. And sometimes that's good. And again, it's a matter of choice. But I think that it might give a little bit more impact if this image had a little bit more room on the right side and on the bottom. And you can do that by content aware fill and probably get a pretty good result. And that would move the center of attention more to the left of the frame so that it had more sort of room to breathe in the direction that it's facing.
I did like the simplicity of the image though.
Yes,
It's
very
nice,
much.
nice image. That's mine. Nice image, captures the sort of height of action of capturing the little whatever, probably a snail or some small crayfish or something. It's nice and sharp. Sometimes it's difficult to get the all that feather detail in there because it's a white bird. If there's any suggestion, it's more, well, you get what you get on this type of nature photography. That not seeing any parts of the legs bothers my eyes a little bit, but again, it's in action, nature action, you get what you get. It's a nice nature story. I think we're getting some feedback on somebody's.
Can everybody mute their microphones, please? In the lower left-hand corner, if you just touch the mic icon, everybody will be muted except the two folks that are presenting. It'll help with the audio. Thank you very much.
Nice night scene. Nice, the blue hour of night. Love the, it's very sharp all the way through. Love the star bursts on the right-hand side. Probably had it in F22 or so, or something like that. Not a lot of suggestions. Maybe again, assuming a raw capture, bring up a little bit more detail on that boat on the left-hand, the sailboat on the left-hand side, and maybe make it cut off a little bit on that left-hand side. It's not doing a lot for you. If you cut off a little bit on the left and maybe a little on the bottom, you could take that middle blue reflection and maybe make it a little bit more towards the rule of thirds. It might just make it a little bit more effective. But again, nice shot.
I don't recognize this.
I don't recognize it either. It's something like another one of our images, but the other images is different. But I'm happy to
Yeah, go ahead.
comment on it. I like the other one a little bit better. Just the black and white conversion works a little bit better for me. I assume we'll get to it. But nice leading lines. They did a great job with these architectural pictures. It's making sure everything's straight up and down. Is you got to sometimes do some extra post-processing work. Nice image. Anything you'd want to say, Jim?
No, I think the tonal quality is really good. There's nothing really blown out. Maybe the window light is a little bit hotter than it needs to be, but the the range from highlight to shadow is really good, and there's lots of midtones in there to keep you interested and engaged in the photo.
Yeah, this is the other one I saw. I really like this. I like the leading lines flowing from the left to the right. Yeah, a little hot in some of the spots for the window, like the other one. Maybe find some way to tone that down a little bit. But I like the black and white conversion. It looks sharp to me. I probably the version that came on my monitor before didn't have some of the detail that this seems to have. I like this better because that would have been one of my suggestions. Nice black and white, make a good, nice print.
Yeah, the image that we got was significantly darker than this.
Yeah, yeah, that again, that would have been my comment but
Yeah.
this is, I like this a lot.
Yep, I do too. I like the shadow on the wall that mimics the diagonal line. You might think about maybe cropping off a little bit on the left-hand side. That will move that light over to the left side of the frame, and I think that would provide a little bit more balance. But that's a real nitpick.
The other thing I might suggest just to try, and I didn't try to, on a number of the images I brought into Photoshop and just tried to see what a suggestion that I might make would work or not. And I didn't do this on this, but go a little crazy on the contrast. Knock up the contrast to all the way up to like maybe 35 or 40 and just see what it looks like. It just might accentuate some of those shadows on the wall. This is mine. Nice, nice colors. Good composition. There's very complementary colors throughout, and I like the positioning of the flower. My suggestion here is around, it looks like somehow you tried to get rid of something that's behind the bottom of the flower, that green that seems to be just shadowing the flower is a little distracting to me, to my eye. And some of the top is a little soft again. I mean, I think this has a lot of potential as an image. Sharpen it up a little bit and find a way to get rid of that green that is a little distracting. Also mine, really nice black and white image. I love the flow of the feathers. Great composition, good placement of the bird. Suggestions again around. I mean, you've got it raw. Is the burnt out areas of the body. Try to see if there's some detail there back in the raw image, and try to bring back a little bit of that image. The burnt out portions are a little distracting to my eye. And then I'd probably also dodge or lighten up some of the beak and then that front of that face. I think it just might improve the image a little bit. But again, nice nature image. Also mine, another not very nice high key image, bird, nice placement. Again, just maybe it's my monitor, I don't know, but just seems that there's a couple spots where it's a little soft. And when you have a image that obviously that is the image out there, you really want to make everything pretty sharp as you can. Again, I like the placement. I like the high key nature of it. Small nit. I probably would clone out those tiny little branches that are below the border. I don't know. Again, what do I know? But they're a little distracting to me. But
I like the fact that there's plenty of detail in the in the shadows, which is not real easy to do in a high key image.
Yeah.
Because you're focused on the white, but that's a really nice balance. Okay, this was mine. This is a pretty spectacular building, and I think this photograph displays that building pretty well. I really like the palm trees on the left and right. They provide sort of a natural boundary for the building, and the amount of detail in the image is pretty outstanding. The sky has really been kind to you and given you great clouds. Looks wonderful. The one really nitpick issue with this might be the fact that it was taken with a wide angle lens, and you can tell that because when you do architecture with a wide angle lens, you'll get vertical lines converging toward the top. And if that happens, what's going to happen is that the building is going to look a little bit out of balance. And it's very, very minute, but this is a little bit out of balance. And Lightroom has a setting that can fix that automatically. It adjusts for whatever lens you were using. It automatically knows what lens and it makes the adjustment. And it would tilt this image slightly down on the right-hand side, and it would make it more stable looking. But it's really nice the way it is. And again, these, like Frank said, these are real nitpicks. But another thing to keep in mind is that the stairway that's there would be a really nice, natural leading line up to the building. But where it's positioned in the frame right now, it's sort of a little bit too far toward the right edge of the frame. So I don't know if you were in a boat, but a little bit further upstream or downstream, when that stairway would have been a little bit more away from the edge of the frame, it might have served as a really nice leading line up to the building. But even as it is now, it's a spectacular image. So this is a big tree. Again, nice image here. The detail in that tree is pretty outstanding. I like the inclusion of the people, which if you look really closely on the right-hand side there, you can see there are actually people, and they serve as a nice scale for how big the tree really is. The issue that some people might have with this image is that once you get past the fact that this is a really nice image of a big tree, there's not a lot more to keep you engaged in the photo. But that's what the photo is. It's a really nice representation of the huge tree. You might consider cropping a little bit off on the left because I don't think that building on the left is helping you any. But otherwise, it's a great tree.
The other suggestion that I would have is I'm assuming this image got inverted, so that I'm assuming that's English inverted. I could be wrong. If it is, I'd just clone it out.
You mean the one that says the bikini body?
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, yeah. Is that? Oh,
Yeah.
it does. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I take it back.
That
Never
caught my
mind.
attention right away.
It just
Actually,
backwards, right?
I made this image and it's a little bit of a joker. I know it's just a tree, but I took this with my cell phone from a boat. And
Wow.
it's that new Samsung Ultra S21. And the wide angle camera supposedly is 108 megapixels. And so this in the building before this, I took with the cell phone from my son-in-law's boat.
Boy,
And
pretty
I
sharp
just-
for a cell phone.
And the amazing thing is for the pictures I'm getting off of that phone, they require very little post-processing. If I do anything like even try to boost the vibrance at times, it doesn't look as good as it did coming straight out of the phone. So I was actually kind of impressed. And like I said, I threw these in here a little bit as a joker, just to see if anybody would make a comment about the sharpness, but it's that phone, that wide angle lens. And I've only had it for a couple of weeks, but I'm pretty impressed with it. But I had to just sort of throw that in there. Sorry.
I did take this into Lightroom, and if you use the highlight slider and move the slider to the left a little bit, you tone down some of the highlights, and I think you get a richer, without adding saturation, you get a little bit richer image of the tree.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, I agree with that. And the only reason I left in the left side is that little circular.
Yep.
It's a weird sculpture. You see from a different angle, it's sort of like a corkscrew. But
Yep.
that's the only reason I left it in there. But no, I agree with that. And but thank you for the comments. I really appreciate it.
So this is my image. Frank is the nature photographer, and my experience with nature photography is commenting on Frank's images. So I don't know what the name of the bird is, but I love the title for this image, which was "Searching for Dinner," I think. And it's you can imagine the story that this image is telling by that title and by the action that the bird is taking. He's kind of sauntering around looking for dinner. I like the inclusion of the foliage in the foreground as a sort of an anchor and a boundary for the image. The major problem with this one, though, is that the bird is very, very soft. And I think that, I don't know the reason for it. Maybe it was handheld at a slow shutter speed or very shallow depth of field. But if you zoom in on the bird, it's really pretty soft. So one other thing I wanted to mention about when you hear judges a lot of times say, well, whatever direction the bird is, the image, the subject is facing, you want to make sure that there's more room in front of the subject, in this case the bird, than there is behind it. And no one ever explains why that's true. And it really is a matter of comfort for the viewer, because the closer you put that image to the edge where it's headed, the more tension you build in the image. And the closer it gets, the higher the tension. So people are often uncomfortable with that tension, and they feel more comfortable and relaxed when the bird has a lot of room to go in front of it. And I just wanted to mention that no one ever explains where that came from. And that was an explanation I heard from a pretty successful photographer. Also mine. This is a nice, pleasing image of a canopy covered lane, plenty of probably Spanish moss mixed in with that. The technical qualities of it are pretty much right on tack. The center of focus and depth of field might be a little shallow in this image, because where the main trunk that's on the left-hand side that's arching over the road, that's pretty much in focus. But the deeper you get into the image, the less sharp the subject is. So one thing that you might want to consider for this image is making sure that you've got a really deep depth of field, so that everything in the image all the way through to the back can be sharp, equally sharp. The other thing is the road is a nice leading line into the image, but the fact that it's so low and such a small part of the bottom of the frame doesn't really take advantage of the fact of the leading line as much as it could. So a way that you could enhance that and make that road bigger is you could tilt the camera down, but then you'd be losing some of the canopy effect on the top of it. So if you just squatted down more so that your camera level was closer to the road would be more prominent. You'd still be able to get the top of the canopy like you have it now. And the leading line would be a much more important element in the image.
I might also suggest, I did not try to do this myself, but I might suggest trying to convert it into black and white, sort of like a Clyde Butcher type of effect of some of the trees, things that he does.
Mm-hmm. I love this image. I mean, I do a lot of composite stuff, and I'm just really impressed with, first of all, you can do all kinds of compositing, but in the end, you have to say, okay, does this work? And boy, I think this works great. So, what was the original image here? Maybe it was the two flamingos and the rock. Maybe the palm tree was put in secondarily, or maybe that was part of the original image too. The moon was certainly added. If you blow this up, you see that the background is really a textured blue, and it really serves as a fantasy sky background. It's just really a neat presentation of it. And then the whole reflection at the bottom. I think it never matters how something was done. It's just like, does it work? But for those of you who are interested in doing this kind of thing, it looks as though that the software from Flaming Peach, called Flood, was used to create the reflection. And yeah, I think it just worked really well. It's a very fantasy oriented image. It's pleasing. One of the things to point out technically is if you look closely at the palm tree and the fact that every one of those fronds is separated from the background. You can see the background, you can see the moon through the leaves of the palm tree. So that's not an easy thing to do when there's so much detail in the palm trees. So this is just all very well done. So once again, the images we're seeing here are substantially brighter than the images that we looked at. Because one of my comments on the image that I originally viewed was that it looked a little dark. But this one looks, pleasantly well exposed. You've got a really nice color and detail in the leaves and detail in the interior of the flower. The flower is off center, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes, as a matter of personal choice, you might want to make the image kind of centered. In this case, I think it might have a little bit more impact if it was centered. It's something at least that you could try. And Frank mentioned before about the borders around the images. I tend to agree that they're not needed, but again, that's a matter of personal choice, and there's nothing really wrong with it. One of the things that you might want to look at is the background is divided between a dark area and a sort of a medium gray area. And if you selected the flower, you could put whatever background you wanted to in there, and it might be a little bit less distracting if it was a more uniform or more gradually changing darkness in the background. But those are all nitpicks. This is a really wonderful image of this flower. Okay, so this was one of mine. And when you look at this image, it's a great image of the pier and the dock at the end of the pier at night. And there's wonderful lights under the pier. And if you enlarged the image and looked at that pier more closely, you'd see a person sitting on a bench and all kinds of detail in the rocks that are in the lower left-hand corner. They serve as a nice anchor to the image. But then as you look a little, and I love the angle of the pier going out. It's a really leads you out to the pier, leads you out into the horizon. But here's something that I really am not 100% sure of. So if the maker's here, I'd like to find out after I'm done commenting. But I think this image was really shot in the daytime, and it's an inversion. Because if you look at the lights down on the dock at the end of the pier, there's no light coming from those lights. And if you reverse this, invert it, that light that's under the pier is a shadow. And these rocks that are here show little indentations that the way it is here, the indentations are lighter than the rest of the rock. But when you invert it, those little indentations have the shadow in them, and the rock has more of a lighter color. So is the maker of this image here?
Yes.
So are you testing us here?
No, the original image wasn't very exciting, but because of the intense sunlight, but when it was inverted, it looked much better.
I agree. I think it's a great image the way it is now, but it took me a while to figure out that that's what it was.
Very creative to think that way. It almost looks like an infrared image.
Yeah. Nice job.
Right? Nice job.
Now, if you want to keep fooling people, you can go in and there are some brushes that add light in different patterns, and light like coming from light bulbs and things. So you could go into each one of those little canopies of light on the pier and add a little bit of light coming from them. People would think that this really was a nighttime image. Good job. Okay, again, one of mine. And this goes back to what I originally said about this is mostly a great job of seeing the image that you wanted to make a photograph of. And after the photograph is made, did you go back and look at it and say, that's the image that I had in mind? And if it was, that's great. If not, what could I do to improve it to make it more like the image that I had conceived? So what you got is a really nice group of rocks at the base, and that serves as a nice foundation and a border for the bottom of the frame. And you've got a really great sky up there, and I like the leading line of the 7 Mile Bridge going across the image. But between the rock and the bridge, you've got a lot of empty water, and I don't think that's helping the image overall. So one suggestion that I can make is that in order to have the same image and get rid of a lot of that middle water, all you need to do is squat down a little bit and change your perspective of taking the photo. So if you lowered the angle that you took the photo at, you would get rid of a lot of that water, you give yourself more room at the top to include those great clouds. And I think you come away with a little bit more impactful image. So I hope that makes sense. Wow, this one is much brighter than the one we had. I'll stop saying that. So really nice photo of this flower, kind of similar to the other one. I think that this one, the way it is appearing here, is nicely exposed. And if you look at it, the center of it is pretty sharp, and some of the leaves are pretty sharp. And I think that one of the things that you may want to look at is that flower is pretty low in the frame, and the lighter colored flower behind it keeps drawing my eye toward it. And I don't think that's what you intend the viewer to do. You want the viewer to pay attention to the flower in the foreground, not the one behind it. So you could do a variety of things. The simplest would be to crop a little bit of the top off so that that flower wasn't as prominent. You could also add a vignette, and that would help to lessen the brightness of that flower. And the final thing you can do is do a selection and completely put whatever background you wanted to behind the flower.
This is mine, another very nice nature shot. I think the maker was constrained a little bit by some pretty harsh light, but I like the colors.
And the fear of bees.
What's that?
And the fear of bees.
And the fear, well, nice showing of the bees. But similar to other comments that Jim and I have made, the bees are as much a subject as the flower is, and some of them are out of focus, and I think that hurts the image. But the things to maybe improve it a little bit was to bring out some of the shadows a little bit more and tone down some of the highlights, which is a pretty easy thing to do with some of the sliders that are in Lightroom. I like the way the flower leans a little bit from left to right, so it makes for a nice composition. But again, probably the key thing is some of the bees are just a little bit out of focus.
So it took me a while to figure this image out. And I was very impressed that the maker had the vision to create this image. So what this is, first of all, does it work? Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter how it was done. Does it work? Is it pleasing? I think it is. It's a graphic image, and you might at first think, well, what's the photograph in it, but there is, and it's pretty ingenious. So if you just take the right-hand quarter of that image, in other words, draw a line through the middle of it horizontally, draw another line through the middle vertically, and if you look at that that quarter, that is an image of a building with a bunch of canopies, awnings on it, right? So that image was duplicated and flipped over to make the matching image on the left-hand side. And then the whole top was duplicated and flipped vertically to make the image on the bottom. And together they make this really elaborate graphic image that is totally based in the photographic world. Nice job. So this went along with the other two black and white portraits. And, I was commenting on this one. I like the lighting in this. This is what's called Rembrandt lighting, where there's a little triangle of light on the right-hand side, opposite where the source of the light is. But the most engaging part, I think, of this portrait is the woman's, the twinkle in her eye and that great smile. It's like it's not a full forced smile. It's very natural. And I just think it works really, really well. The cool part about the image is that compared to the informality of the woman's pose, the dog is extremely formal in the way it's posing, with its chin up and it's looking out to the side. And the juxtaposition of the two of them, I think, is hilarious. And there's a lot of emotion involved in the way the woman's holding the dog, and you can tell that they're buddies. So very nice job. I took this into Lightroom and I was able to get quite a bit more detail in the camera left side of the woman's hair. Right now, the way the image is showing, it's kind of blown out, but there's a lot of detail left in there, even in the JPEG image. So if that's something you may want to look at a little bit, and because as it is now, it's so bright that your eye is kind of drifting toward that brightness a little bit. And I think if it was toned down a bit, it would just make you stay focused on that great face.
This is mine. Another very nice black and white conversion. Like the flames in there, your eye gets drawn to it. But the tonality of the black and white, just seemed to work real well. One small suggestion would be to use content aware and just add a little bit more breathing room on that left-hand side. But again, I like this image a lot. Nice black and white.
So can I ask how we're doing for time?
No comment from Vinny.
So it should be good. Okay.
I think we're good.
You know what?
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, it took me a while to figure out. We're doing fine on time, so carry on, guys. Carry on.
All right. So here's a nice example of a street photo, a portrait of someone who maybe is or isn't aware that the portrait's being taken. The nice parts of this image, in my opinion, are the leading lines and produced by the shadow of the railing that leads you right up to the subject. The fact that the person is sitting down kind of tells a story. You know, is the person resting? Is he massaging his right leg there? Some people may say, well, you know, you can't really see his face. And I think that's a valid observation, but I don't think that hurts this image at all, because in a lot of street photography, you don't necessarily aren't able to see the person's face. If the person looked up and saw you taking a picture, they might, you know, make a much more unnatural pose. This is just a nice moment that's caught and presents an image that tells a story.
I don't see that image on my screen.
Craig,
I have no idea what that could be.
I
Is it
see an
on
image of a railing.
Yeah, you don't see a person there?
No.
Whoa.
I have no idea.
You want me to describe it to you? Sorry. That's weird.
Yep. How about this image?
Check the zoom on your monitor.
That one I could see.
Is everyone seeing this image? Hopefully.
I am.
I am.
Yeah,
Um,
woman in a window.
Yep, on the right hand, on the top right hand. Well, you might be zoomed in or something. If that's all you're seeing is the woman, because this is there's a lot to this photograph. I really like this a lot. My photography style is much more of a minimalist, and you might first look at this and think of it as being busy, but I just think it works really well. I'm almost wondering whether some of this is a composite of some images. If this is, it doesn't matter. I just think this photograph, the colors, the sharpness, the composition, the two palm trees positioned so well, all the people just really not looking, but I don't think you want them to look. I just thought it worked really well. And if it was a composite, then I'm even more impressed with it. Only small suggestion would be is my eye gets a little distracted by that person that's cut off. Their feet or legs are cut off in the bottom right. I didn't try it, but you might be able to just do some sort of content aware and clone them out somehow or another. It might take a little bit of work, but I just think it might improve it a little bit. But again, I really like this image a lot.
I like this too. And one also nitpick is that whenever there's type on an image, your eye gets drawn to it. And that in the upper left-hand corner, that sign that says for sale, there's a lot to look at in this image, but it's like a magnet drawing my eye over there. And you could easily clone that out by using the content from the window pane just to the right of that. And it would remove that distraction. On the other hand, I mean, that's kind of part of the overall scene. It's all busy and
yeah, actually, I like it because it's sort of controlling chaos in a nice way. The only other suggestion, and again, probably should have tried to do this myself and didn't, and it would make a completely different image. Try to convert it to black and white and see what it looks like. This is mine, very calming image, nice colors. That blue really stands out. The nice job, it's sharp all the way through. Really like that red building that's in the sort of the top left-hand corner. Again, maybe bring out a little bit more of the shadows, the detail in some of the shadows, particularly those trees on the sort of top right, and maybe a little bit in some of the rocks. But again, very pleasing image, very calming image. You feel like I want to sit there and take a nap.
So this was one of mine, and it's pretty much my favorite image that I reviewed. I wrote out some comments for each image, and I just want to read part of what I wrote for this. The woods are scary, dark, and deep, to paraphrase Robert Frost. This image evokes feelings of extraterrestrials and carnivorous plants. The wonderful detail in the bark of the roots in the foreground draw the viewer into the image. The one leaf that's a bit brighter than the rest adds a focal point of interest. And that kind of summarizes the way I feel about this image. It's just a very contained part of a gigantic ecosystem of trees and leaves, and it's just really nicely done. And the image, so Craig, one of the things we should talk about afterwards is the images that we got were substantially darker than the ones we're seeing here. So I wonder if there's a reason for that. You don't have to talk about it now. So one of the comments I had was that the darkness, the the leading lines of these roots were leading into darkness. And I thought if you could draw a little bit more shadow detail out of that, it would be a better image. And this one shows that that is a better image, in my opinion, because you can see a little bit more shadow detail in there. Really nicely seen and nicely acquired image.
Certainly one of the things that makes this image is that leaf. I just want to know, was it placed there or was it already there?
Yeah, right.
Just kidding.
Okay, I'm thinking maybe. I think that was the last one. Yes,
Okay.
that was our last image.
Well, I'll end it with saying, what the heck do we know?
Somewhere.
Take our
Right.
comments with always with a grain of salt.
I gotta say,
Exactly.
you guys did a marvelous job. I really appreciated it. And
Thank you, guys.
I would like to point out at this time that those three street portraits that you saw that you really commented on positively were Bob Dean's. I'm sure, Bob, you don't object to me outing you for this, but Bob has his own peculiar brand of street portraiture, which he does with mostly natural lighting. And I've tried to emulate him over the years, and I've gotten some minimal success, but just FYI, Bob will be our May 10th speaker. He will be showing more of his images and speaking about how he makes them. So May
Nice
10th,
job.
looking forward to that. The other thing is, while I have all your attention, we had spoke with Bernie Hines today. We had a real laugh. He told me that he was working for like 10 minutes before he realized there was nobody watching him. He also mentioned that he saw messages from me and Jack Migliore, and nobody could get his attention because he shut his phone off. So what we're going to do to rectify that is we're going to have a mini Zoom with just Bernie, Bob, Dave Janes, and Scott and myself, and we're going to record it, and we're just going to publish the link to the video for that. It might be easier.
Good idea.
Yeah, and this way, and Bernie's will be doing our January 26th competition judging, so you'll be able to talk to him that night if you wish, and he's a very nice man. He'd be happy to talk offline, I'm sure. Other than that, gentlemen, I appreciate your time and your insights, and thanks again.
Okay, everyone have a nice night.